Hello, this is Julie Walland, and welcome to the Zentangle Project Pack series. This lesson is part of Project Pack 4. Project Pack 4 is designed around a specific project we are calling the Zentangle Spinner. We are using our annual 12 Days of Zentangle series to share 12 consecutive days of lessons with you and guide you along in filling the spinner with tangles. Today is the 8th day in the series, but if you are watching these videos after the day they are posted, you can easily do these lessons out of order. Today I'm going to guide you through filling one wedge of your spinner with some tangles. Although I'm working on a blank spinner here, if you're on day 8, your spinner's probably already filled with tangles, so you're just going to pick a blank wedge and pick up your Micron 01. And we're going to start in the innermost section of our spinner. And our first tangle today is going to be Crescent Moon. And this is a tangle that people usually learn when they're first starting their Zentangle practice. But I know personally, I sometimes forget about it in my daily practice. So I thought it would be a good tangle to start with today. So again, we're working in the innermost section of whatever wedge you have chosen. And we're going to start by adding some little ladybug shapes to the perimeter of the space. And then you want to leave some space in between, maybe enough for you to fit another little ladybug in there if you wanted to, but we're going to leave that blank. And you're going to go around the section. Again, when you reach the corner, you can put one in there if you need to. There we have it. And then you want to go back in and you want to fill in those ladybug shapes with ink from your pen. So we're going to go ahead and color each of those shapes in. Remembering to turn your spinner when you need to. And then once you have all of your little ladybugs all filled in, we're going to go back and we're going to aura each of these ladybug shapes. And so you're just going to draw a line that mimics the shape of the ladybug. And we're going to do that for each little shape. And once you have your first aura down, we're going to go back and we're going to aura each of those shapes again. Keeping your auras about the same equidistance apart. And then we're going to aura them again. And as you start to aura inward and inward, you'll find that your aura becomes one continuous line. And we're going to keep doing that until you can't do it anymore. And then I like to fill in that little shape. So there we have it, Crescent Moon. We are going to shade these, but I'm going to wait till the end to shade the entire wedge at once. So now we are going to move on to the second space here. And here we're going to do bales. And bales is a grid tangle, and it's one I've really come to love. And so we're going to start by creating a grid. But my grid is going to start in the corner here. And my line's not going to be perfectly straight. It's going to be a little wonky. And I'm going to put a parallel line in. Probably the width, you could like lay your pen in there, maybe a little smaller. And I'm going to keep going, parallel lines. Kind of mimicking that initial wonkiness. I'm going to turn my tile and I'm going to start in the in the other corner here, and I'm going to do the same thing. A line that's not quite perfectly straight, and then some parallel lines. So there we have our grid. And then the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add a little rice shape that kind of hugs each of these lines in the grid. And so you're going to start in the corner here and come out a little bit and then back in. And then do that again on the other side. And there you have what I'm calling a little rice shape. And you're going to do that to each of these lines, starting in the corner, come out a little bit, and then meet back in the corner. You don't want to make your rice shapes too big that they take up the entire area in your square. And then once you have all of those rice shapes in, you can turn your tile, and you're going to do the same thing on the lines going in the other direction. So again, starting in the corner, coming out a little bit, and meeting back in. Starting in the corner, come out a little bit, and meet back in the corner. And what I really like about bales is that once you have finished it, you have these spaces in between where you can kind of do what you want in them. Today I'm going to go inside each space, and I'm going to aura those rice shapes. So I get like this little pillow shape in the middle. And then I'm going to connect the corner of the pillow shape to the corner of the bales. All four corners. And I'm going to do that inside each one. And although there's not a full square here, we can imagine that it continues underneath the banner there. So I'm just going to draw it as if it did keep going. And you find that if you didn't do a perfect grid, and your lines are a little wonky like mine, then all of your spaces in between are going to be a slightly different size. And I think that's okay. I think it gives it a little more character. And the last one. And there we have our bales. And again, I'm going to come back and shade this after we've completed the entire wedge. Next, we are going to work in this little band here with a border tangle. And we're going to be using the tangle Shattuck today. And what's really great about Shattuck, it's an awesome border tangle, but you can also use it to fill all sorts of different shape spaces. But today we're going to use it as a border tangle. And you're going to start at one end of your border. I'm going to start right here. And I'm going to start in this corner right here, and I'm going to draw an arc that goes across and meets the other side, so you kind of have this wedge. And then I'm going to aura the inside of that arc, just like that. And I'm going to continue to aura these lines until I get to the corner there. And I'm going to turn my tile. It's really important with this tangle that you remember to turn your tile or your spinner. And I'm going to start where that first arc ended, and I'm going to draw another arc going in the opposite direction. And then I'm going to aura the inside of that arc. You could start your arcs in the corner here or out, getting bigger and bigger each time. But I find if you start with this first, the largest arc first, then you can make sure that your arcs keep the same shape because you're getting smaller and smaller instead of larger and larger. But if you find the other way works better for you, then by all means. And there we have Shattuck. Next, we're going to move to our outermost layer. And we have two sections here. So I'm going to pick one. And I'm going, in this section right here, we're going to do Mara Sue, which is my personal favorite tangle. And for Mara Sue, I'm going to start in the middle of this section, and I'm going to draw a spiral out. You want to maybe keep your spiral as thick as those initial bands you did in bales, kind of that same size. You want to maybe see if you can get 2 or 3 spirals in there. We got about 2.5 there. And then starting right here in this middle dot, I'm going to do a line that connects it to this line right here. And mine has a little bit of a curve to it. And then we're going to do a second line that kind of meets at that same dark dot that again has a little curve to it. Then I'm going to leave a little space, and I'm going to be working on this line here, so the first little spiral, and I'm going to draw another line here, and then another one parallel. Well, not perfectly parallel, because if those lines kept going, they would cross, but creating a little wedge of sorts. And then I'm going to leave some free space, and I'm going to draw this shape again. And I'm going to keep going around and around my spiral. Again, remembering turning your spinner during this tangle is really important. And all of my little spaces are about the same size, but they don't have to be exact. In fact, I find the farther and farther I go out from my spinner, they get larger and larger. And then next we're going to fill in each of these spaces. So it might be helpful to you if you want to put a little dot inside one. So as you're going along, you know that's the space that you want to color in. Sometimes I'm on autopilot filling in the spaces that I'll skip one or I'll do the wrong one. So it is helpful so you know that if there's a dot there, that means you want to fill that in. And then we're just going to begin filling in spaces with our ink. So when you're filling in the spaces on your Mara Sue, just take a moment to really appreciate the act of filling these spaces with ink. I found that there are generally 2 types of people. Ones that love this part when you're just coloring in, and then those who really don't like it at all and just want to get it over with as quickly as possible. So if you are in the latter group of people and it can become quite frustrating for you, and you just want to get it over with, just take a deep breath and just take a moment to appreciate not having to think about what line is next or which direction you're going in, because you're just filling in these spaces. And once you have all of your spaces filled in, we're going to go back and we are going to add an aura to each side. And there we have it. We have Mara Sue. And finally, in our last space right here, we're going to do Indirella. And Indirella is a unique tangle in the sense that it's one of the only tangles where none of the lines actually touch each other. It's just a series of auras and auras and auras. And we've actually done, in the tangles we've done today, we've used the aura technique quite a bit. We learned it in Crescent Moon, we used it in Bales, in Shattuck, in Marsu, and now this tangle, Indirella, is primarily all auras. And that's part of the reason why you learn Crescent Moon so early on, because it teaches you that basic principle of aura in a pretty simple way. So for Indirella, I'm going to start in the corner here, and I'm just going to do a dot. And then I'm going to aura that dot about halfway around. And then I'm going to aura that line again, a little bit bigger this time, or a little bit longer. And then I'm going to aura it again, and again making it a little bit longer. But none of the lines ever touch each other. And I'm going to continue this process, making it a little bit bigger each time until I get to a point where I felt the line is long enough. And then I'm going to aura it again, but this time I'm going to start getting smaller again. Each time the line is going to be a little bit shorter. Until I'm just a dot again. And then I'm going to start another Indirella right here. And I'm going to add my little aura. I'm going to continue to do so. I'm not going to touch the lines of the other Indirella, but I'm getting pretty close. And about at that point now, I'm going to start getting smaller again. And what's cool about Indirella is you can really kind of control the way your little shape morphs. So as my lines start to get smaller, I'm going to kind of favor one side a little bit. And you'll see that my shape is starting to go this way instead of that way. And that one's a little bit bigger, and that's okay. Your shapes can be all different sizes. In fact, I'm going to put a real little guy right here. Kind of reminds me of a school of fish. So again, we're going to fill this space right here with all these little Indirella shapes. The key to remembering is A, to aura, and B, that none of your lines actually touch each other. And there we have Indirella and our completed wedge. So now you can go ahead and you can put your cap on your micron, and you can pick up your pencil because we're going to shade. If you are doing these project pack videos a little bit out of order and you haven't already applied the watercolor to your spinner, I would not shade at this time. I would wait till after you apply the color and it dries to then shade. But if you already have the color on, then you can go ahead and pick up your pencil. And first we're going to shade Crescent Moon here. And I'm just going to add some graphite in between these little ladybug shapes. You don't need to add any graphite to the actual ladybug shapes because when you actually put the graphite on the black ink, it gives it a little bit of a shine. So you just need it in between those shapes. And then you're going to take your tortillon. I'm going to go in and I'm going to gently kind of pull these the graphite out and kind of around our ladybugs a little bit. You'll want to be careful not to pull the graphite into your entire space so that the entire thing is shaded, because you need that light space in the middle to give it that contrast. I'm actually going to go back in and add a little bit more here and then go back in and soften it up. And there we have Crescent Moon. And next we're going to shade Bales. And the way I'm going to shade Bales today is I'm going to add some graphite to those original lines of the grid that we put down. Go back. And then I'm going to take tortillon and I'm just going to soften them a little bit. And this just kind of accentuates the initial grid we put down, giving it a little depth and dimension. Next, we are going to shade Shattuck here. And the first thing I'm going to do with Shattuck is that at each of these, the first auras that we put down, I'm going to put a little bit of graphite, not a whole lot. I'm doing this very sparingly, just a little bit. And then I'm going to add some underneath that top border. And then on that bottom border. And then I'm going to go back in and soften it up. And then we're going to shade Marisu. And I'm going to start by adding some graphite along the lines of the spiral here. So top and bottom. And with this one, I am being a little heavy-handed and being very generous with the graphite here. And then we're going to take a tortillon. I'm going to go in, I'm going to soften these edges, pulling it into the middle on both sides, but making sure to leave this middle area untouched by the graphite. That is important when shading this tangle, because that way it gives it kind of that rounded coil look. Now you don't have in your project pack a white charcoal, but if you have one laying around, I would pick it up, because I'm going to use this on the Marasu to really make it pop. And I know these aren't in your project pack, but I just can't help myself. And you're going to start in the middle here and add some highlight going down the middle of your Marasu where you left it untouched by graphite. And again, I'm going to be pretty heavy-handed with this white charcoal here. And you see how it gives it that highlight to really give it some more depth and dimension. And then finally, we're going to shade our Indirellas. And I'm going to shade each of these little shapes individually. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my tile here, and I'm going to kind of work on the bottom of each shape, adding some graphite. I am being a little generous here, not as generous as I was with Marasu, but I am putting down quite a bit of graphite. And then I'm going to go back with my tortillon and I'm going to soften the graphite. Again, you don't want to fill the whole space with graphite. And there we have it. Thank you so much for joining me today on day 8 of Project Pack 04. I've had so much fun tangling with you guys on our Zentangle spinners, and I hope you guys have a great day.